Good day, English 2B. I hope you're all doing well. I am Miss Crystal Duay, and today I will discuss the continuation of contemporary realistic fiction. But before we start, I hope you had watched Mr. Jordan Ikban's presentation where he described the definition of these terms. If you did, then let's start the lesson. Realistic fiction is divided into two types. First, historical fiction. These were popular in 19th century. The 19th century, writers were inspired to write stories which conveys the social condition of their country. Usually this involves the lives of the people during the World War and Revolution. Historical fiction stories presents the real-life events of the people from the past, which was reenacted by fictional characters, and authors of this genre relies on the accurate detail to portray historical events. And to make it more creative, they commonly use fictitious characters. The other type is the contemporary realistic fiction. Contemporary means present events, or something that is happening within our present time. This stories focuses on the issues within our current time situation. In this lesson, we will focus on the categories and popular types of contemporary realistic fiction. So to start our discussion, let's start with the first category. Have you ever read a story where you witness the growth of the protagonist? For example, if you can describe their personality starting from childhood until they change and grow up? If you did, we can describe it as becoming one's own person. This is the life of the protagonist in the story where they made self-discovery and growth development. As the story develops, the character also grows and creates changes on their personality. In realistic fiction, one of the common themes is the coming of age. The coming of the age theme in the story shows the life sequence of the protagonist starting from their childhood to adulthood. Coming of age is also known as Bildungsroman, which originated from a German term Bildung that means education, and Roman which pertains to novel. This is the specific type of the coming of age theme, which expresses the progress of a character. So what are the characteristics of Bildungsroman? The first one, the story describes the protagonist's characteristics from being immature to a fully developed one. Usually, the protagonist is not yet matured and inexperienced. But if they already have different experience, their personality molds into a better one. Next one is the occurrence of inciting events, which can force the character to pursue their goal. Inciting events are the turning point in the protagonist's life. For example, if they experience a painful scenario, usually caused by the villain, the changes in the character's action or ideas will be visible. That's why the protagonists develop themselves. Third, the character will experience challenges and a lot of failures. Just like in real life, we experience a lot of problems before we achieve what we are aiming for. Lastly, the epiphany of the character and acceptance of lesson learned. Epiphany is the sudden realization or the character's reflection about his or her action. This can be seen when the character becomes matured. Coming of age is important to show the development of the protagonist. So how can we know if a story have a pattern of this theme? In the beginning, the protagonist is still unexperienced, and as they grow old, they would meet problems along the way. In order to solve these challenges, the character will choose what decision should be done. in the end, the character will finally achieve maturation. So why do we need to know the coming of age theme, especially for children's literature? First, it makes the children realize that they are not alone. In realistic fiction, it involves events that can happen in real life. The protagonist may act just like human with the same life problems. That's why coming of age is popular among children because it helps them to feel the sense of belongingness. Second, it helps them to overcome typical problems in life. The way how they overcome common problems will set as an example for children. Lastly, it introduces them to the real world scenario. Children's book expose young children into different situations. Realistic fiction introduces children of what they may have become in the future. So one example of a story with coming of age theme is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. So this is about the life story of a 16-year-old boy named Holden who encountered different challenges in life. The author shows the different experience of Holden starting from his childhood until he grows up. So this defines coming of age theme. This story reflects the desire of those people who keeps on holding on the things that they cannot change, which may serve as an example for the children to be careful of their choices. So another example is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. So this is a novel about the protagonist Atticus Finch, a lawyer and a father who tries to defend a black man who is wrongly accused of raping a woman in Alabama. So as his son and daughter grow older, he always reminds them that killing a mockingbird is a sin, for they are innocent and harmless. So the coming of age theme can be seen on how children grow as their father teach them a moral lesson. The story teach children how to stand for the truth and avoid discrimination. So next category is the relationship with the family. This focuses on the stories about the challenges and conflict resolutions in the family setting. So just like in real life, we encounter conflicts with the family, and as much as possible, we try to solve it. Stories about family already appeared in Victorian days. So before, Victorian females used to read books as a form of entertainment. Early family stories focuses on the safety and security. So in the World War era, family is the most secure place that a person can have because it's just easy to kill anybody before just by the command of the authorities. In the modern family stories, family conflicts are common. Children already experience these issues. So one example is The Two Homes by Claire Masurel. The protagonist in the story deals with the divorce issue. This helps the children how to deal with family conflicts. Next one we have the relationship with others. These are the challenges experienced by the characters in engaging with others, where the protagonist may have difficulties in dealing with other people. These problems can be about peer acceptance, self-identity, or even in surviving. Peer acceptance is when the protagonist seeks for a group of friends who is willing to accept him or her. Another one is self-identity, where the character tries to find oneself in life problems such as abuse or discrimination. And lastly, we have survival. Survival is the courage of the character to survive in a challenging world. These are the examples of the issues that we experience in the 21st century. One example of a book with the characters who experience difficulties in engaging with others is The Trouble with Friends by Claudia Wills. The story talks about the antisocial life of Nora, who was challenged to create changes in her life by taking Emma as a friend. This shows that dealing with other people might be difficult for those who are not sociable. This story can help children to use strategies on how to engage with others. The next category is the challenges in human condition. I'm sure you already read books where the protagonists have an exceptionalities. So these stories involves the struggle of the protagonist based on their physical, mental, and age aspect. These are the common issues under this category: physical disability, mental illness, and death. Physical disability is when the protagonists have physical impairments. This becomes a problem when other people discriminates them. Another one is the mental illness. When a person have difficulties in having normal behavior, in the story they act differently than the norms. And also death. Situations like when the protagonist die or lost someone. Stories under this category can help different people how to deal with these inevitable problems. So this is an example of a novel about a person with disability, entitled Deaf Child Crossing by Marlee Matlin. The story focuses about Megan, who was born deaf, and as she grows up, she learned how to deal with her disability. So the purpose of this story is to help young children to understand the nature of people with disability. So the last one is diversity. So this is a category of contemporary realistic fiction that deals with different characteristics of people in terms of race, gender, or culture. So in this category, the protagonist may have a different color of skin, a preference of gender, or different tradition and beliefs. Diversity helps the readers to have a deeper understanding on people with different characteristics. So one example of a story about diversity is the book entitled Sulwe, created by Lupita Nyong'o. This is about a child who wishes for her dark skin to be lighter. The story shows that we are living in a diverse world. Before we move to another discussion, let's have a short game. I will show you a picture of a book with its summary, and you will try to guess on what category does it belong. Are you ready? Then let's get started. First example, Joey Pizza Loses Control, created by Jack Gantos. So the summary of the story is about the challenging life of Joey, who's suffering from an ADD or attention deficit disorder. Based on the summary of the story, in what category do you think the story belongs? You have 5 seconds to answer the question. Are you done? Then I will reveal the answer. You're right! This is the challenges in human condition. Next example. Harry Potter is the adventure of a young boy in the school of wizards called Hogwarts. This story shows the life of the characters from childhood to adulthood. Based on the summary of the story, what do you think is the category of Harry Potter? Are you done? Then let's reveal the answer. You're right! It's becoming one's own person, or much specifically, coming of age theme. Just take note that Harry Potter is a specific example of coming of age story. It's because the story focuses on the growth and development of the protagonist. Now, let's move on with the types of contemporary realistic fiction. First, we have humor. In realistic fiction, humor stories includes entertainment and exaggerated predicament that are solved in clever and unique ways. When we say predicament, these are the embarrassing situation. Usually in stories that are humorous, the author tends to create embarrassing moments for the protagonist. These stories also serve as a coping mechanism to cover the reality of life. Humor reflects human emotions. For example, one way of preventing emotional life problems is when we express it in a funny way. We don't always express our problems that can worry other people. Instead, we joke about it. Contents of humorous stories can be divided into three forms: the character, situation, and language. The characters in humor stories have eccentric personality or a strange behavior. This is what makes the protagonist stand out. The situation of the protagonist can be awkward, surprising, or ridiculous, which can make people laugh. And lastly, the language. Sometimes in the sentences of the story, the author uses puns or wordplay, irony, and malapropism. So, have you ever sung a song with wrong lyrics? If you did, that's an example of malapropism. Malapropism happens when you mistakenly change the right word with something that has similar tone with it. So one example of a humorous story under contemporary realistic fiction is The Skinny Bones of Barbara Park. As I read the summary, try to observe the words that was used. Alex Brankovich is a player of baseball, but his team considered him as the smallest and second worst member. He has a major league size of mouth for always bragging his pitching skills to the best player of their team, which is TJ Stollner. So this leads him into a major league of a trouble. And as he became a Grand Slam ball for all humiliations, he manages to be strong by being funny to overcome his problems. So have you noticed something different? I hope you do. The summary uses exaggerated words to describe the protagonist. This is one of the characteristics of a humorous story. Also, children enjoys reading books with humor and related to real-life situation. These kind of stories are not only for entertainment, but it also gives life lesson. Another popular type is the animal. Animal stories depicts the emotions and the behaviors of the animals. Unlike humans, animals can only express themselves through their actions. So in the earlier times, animals were only described normally. They behave just like an animal. In realistic fiction, they serve as a human companion, where the human and the animal share the same traits. So in the genre of fiction, animals can speak and act like a human. The authors have the freedom to do what they want on the characters. While in realistic fiction, we can only read the animals based on how they act. So an example of a novel which focuses on the animals is the book entitled Shiloh by Phyllis Naylor. So the summary is about a boy who named Marty who walks across a hill behind his home. So as he goes through the hill, a dog caught his attention. He named it Shiloh and gave him as a pet. But little did he know that the dog was owned by an abusive man. Despite of this, their friendship became strong. So this influences the children to become more connected with the animals by understanding their feelings. Another popular type is about the sports. The characters in this type of story includes in a sport setting. These stories encourage sportsmanship and good moral character. So sports stories were introduced at 19th century in Boys magazine. So if Victorian females read family stories, sports are the popular reading material for the boys. Usually the conflicts in sports develops in the interpersonal problems of the characters, which means that the conflict is between two people. Moonrunner is about an elementary student, Mina, who discovers her skills in running. The conflict starts when she have to compete with her best friend named Ruth. As she thinks about her best friend, she purposely chooses to lose in the game, but instead of the good result, it leads to misunderstanding. Sports stories presents how competition affects the life of the people. Another one of the most common types that was used in different genre are the stories inside the school. This focuses on the characters' daily activities in the school setting. Also, the characters' trials and tribulation or sufferings were emphasized in the story. An example is the novel entitled Frindle by Andrew Clements. The story describes the life of Nick, a student who always annoys his teachers. Because of his playful idea, he created the word Frindle, which means pen. And as he grows up, the popularity of the word affects negatively in his life. So this story shows how the protagonist deals with a conflict in a school setting. School stories depicts the life of students, making the readers feel connected. The last type of a contemporary realistic fiction is about the mysteries. These are the detailed stories containing suspenseful and exciting scenario which slowly unfolds the truth behind the conflict of the story. It always gives us the question, why does it happen? Which intrigues the mind of the reader. Early mystery books were popularized by Edgar Allan Poe in 19th century. It included puzzles, especially in solving the crimes in his story. Edgar Allan Poe is a writer famous for his adult literature with mysteries. Nate the Great by Marjorie Sharma is an example of a book with mystery. So the story revolves about the activities of Nate in finding the lost items of his friends. So these mystery books can create question in children's mind. This also encourages children to reread the story and come up with a solution. Before we end the discussion, try to guess the types of the story. Are you ready? Then let's get started. First example, Tackling Dad by Elizabeth Levy. So the story is about the 13-year-old girl named Carrie who struggles convincing her father to let her play football even if she's a girl. So based on the summary that you hear, what do you think is the type of this contemporary realistic fiction story? Are you done? Then let's reveal the answer. You're right. It's sports. Second example. I'm sure you are familiar with this book, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So this explores the middle school life of Greg as he tried to survive in a school surrounded by rebellious students. His best friend Rolly is his companion. Based on the summary that you hear, what do you think is the type of the book? Are you done? Then let's reveal the answer. You're right. It's about school. Again, these are the topics that we discuss under contemporary realistic fiction. In the categories, we have becoming one's own person, relationship with the family, relationship with others, challenges in human condition, and diversity. While in the popular types, we have humorous story, animal, sports, school, and mysteries. Thank you for listening and God bless.